The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
On this week's Court TV podcast, it took 3 days, but the prosecutor finally ended his opening statements in the Robert Durst murder trial. Was it too much, or did he lay the groundwork for Durst to finally pay for his alleged crimes? Plus, we'll discuss the latest developments with Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow and the dating app murder trial.
This is the Court TV podcast with Vinnie and Seema Iyer.
Welcome to the Court TV podcast. Great to have you aboard. I'm Vinnie along with Seema Iyer. Seema, great to see you. You're smiling again.
Great to see you. We are back in our podcast mode. We're all Purelled up.
Certainly, of course.
Because we're dealing with some constraints of the Kano.
Yeah, you have to, and everyone just has to be smart about it.
Yes.
Which is why I'm sitting 6 feet away from you,
You're
because you've traveled around the
6
country covering all these cases and digging into these files in these dirty courthouses around the country.
And excuse me, where was...
And I stay in our pristine studio.
Where was our Weinstein New York City studio? Where?
It was in
Chinatown.
In Chinatown, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
so
right there.
People are accusing me of being patient zero, but I'm not.
But you're not. You're not at all, and there's no problem there.
But I'm definitely not as much of a germaphobe as you are.
No, I'm definitely more.
You're a bit of a freak.
But I'm smart. I'm smart about it. That's all.
Yeah, but I don't think you need to wipe down the anchor desk every evening before you start your show.
I did that before Corona.
I know. You every night. You Windex.
Who are these people that are in the studio all day? I don't know them. Who are these people?
One of them is me. You're looking at her.
No, but these guests, they all come in. I don't know where they've been. Most of them are criminal defense attorneys, so they're hanging out in jails with their clients.
That's true.
That's of course true. The first thing I do when I get in the studio is I wipe down the set.
I'm always worried you're going to Windex me one day.
Yeah.
Because you spray that everywhere. Okay, what's happening today is Durst. We are taking a huge breath after the 3-day opening statement by the prosecution.
Record setting.
Do you think it's historic?
It absolutely is. I've never, it took over the course of 2 separate weeks, because it started in 1 week. Then there was Friday off, Saturday off, Sunday off. Then we finished the thing the following week. Like, we have to remember. What you need is one of those previously ons.
Yeah.
Before he began the last part of his opening statement.
He kind of did that. That's a great point. He kind of did that Monday morning by saying, okay, let me just recap a little. So he did a little bit.
He is producing a mini-series inside that courtroom. And it was well produced. It really was.
I think his main objective was to tell the story about how it all began with Kathy Durst's disappearance in 1982. That, of course, was the wife of Robert Durst, and that happened back in New York. And then he goes forward in the storytelling, weaves in the victim of the California case, his longtime friend, Susan Berman, and he brings her into this story and how she helped Robert Durst navigate Kathy's disappearance.
And we know it's fascinating to me. I was like, well, why would Susan Berman do that? Like, who is this woman?
Mm-hmm.
And part of his opening statement was explaining who she was. And she was the daughter of a notorious member of Murder, Inc.
Yes. And
I mean, this is so she grew up, at least to a certain age, with a dad who was kind of connected to this underworld.
Right. So her dad was a mobster, and I think it was a crucial part of the opening statement, or at least some insight into Susan Berman, because, and I know this from being a criminal defense attorney, is that when you are part of a family of criminals, you just have a different set of morals. And it's not good or bad. It's just that you have more allowances for criminal behavior. Some of us are black and white. It's just, nope, you're a criminal. I want nothing to do with you. Some people would never be friends with a criminal. I'm one of those people, but other people are saying, hey, yes, this person's a criminal and they may engage in racketeering or money laundering, but they're a good person.
Right. She loved her father.
Loved her dad.
But she understood what her father did. So that's how she could be, and this really resonated with me. That's how she could be friends with Robert Durst, knowing what he allegedly did, and still be friends with him, knowing this past, and knowing that the being a criminal or a killer doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that, but from her perspective, I can understand it. I can absolutely understand it, because people are not just single faceted. There's different parts to people. And to me, that was the mystery going in, is why would this woman keep this guy's secret if she actually had it?
But we don't know the extent of the relationship between Susan Berman and Robert Durst. Meaning, okay, so Robert says they're just friends, but we don't know. Maybe Susan Berman had feelings for him. I know she had a lot of money problems. He would help her with money. So maybe there are more layers to this relationship that we're going to uncover. We do know that the prosecution expects to call approximately 13 witnesses that are going to say, Susan said this, Susan said that. Susan told me she was the alibi for Robert Durst. Susan told me that if anything happens to me, Bobby did it. So that's just an example.
Yeah, and to me, that's powerful stuff, but it's also hearsay, isn't it?
Well,
isn't that part of the?
No, we talked about this a little bit on last week's podcast.
I know
it comes in under the exception forfeiture by wrongdoing.
Right, but it is hearsay, but it's an exception to the hearsay rule.
It is, yes, it is.
Right, so it gives a distinct advantage to prosecutors in this case, because Susan Berman cannot be cross-examined. So the statements that she allegedly made to someone else out of court, you can cross-examine the person who says they heard him, but you can't cross-examine the person who allegedly uttered them, which gives, I think, a big advantage to prosecutors. And, California rules are what they are.
Without a doubt. I mean, advantage prosecution. The other advantage to the prosecutor's case is that they get to bring in the killing of Morris Black, which, Robert Durst went on trial for his murder and was acquitted. But now the prosecution in LA is going to say he, in fact, murdered Morris Black.
Right, despite the jury in Galveston, Texas, that listened to all the evidence and listened to all the witnesses, it was about 16 years ago, saying not guilty. Now, you can agree or disagree with what the verdict that the jury gave, but that's the way our system works, which, again, another huge advantage here to the prosecution.
I think this is bananas.
That you're bringing in a killing that you're alleging is a murder that he was found not guilty of.
I think it's bananas. This is very much, as a defense attorney, disturbing to me.
I don't understand California.
Okay, so the theory...
You're going to explain California to me now?
A little bit. The theory, well, it is the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
For
such a liberal
literally and
state,
figuratively, yes.
They give the prosecution a lot of advantages here.
Sure do. So with Morris Black, the prosecution's theory and how it's being allowed under is that it was the same common design or plan. Why Susan Berman was killed, why Morris Black were killed, in essence, was all under the umbrella of trying to hide the fact that he killed Kathy Durst.
Yeah. To me, the story that the prosecution laid out in his opening statement makes tons of sense to me. To me, it's more about the procedural way that we're getting to where we are. But it's amazing. I'm ready.
Okay, so next I want to ask you, what does the defense have to do in their opening statements? We'll be right back.
For more Court TV, watch it on cable, over the air, Roku, or go to CourtTV.com and stream live gavel-to-gavel coverage. Catch up on the big moments from our current cases and relive some of Court TV's most historic trials. Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
The prosecution in California versus Durst gave a historic 3-day opening. So now the question is, Vinny, what does the defense have to show? Let's listen to a little clip from the prosecution, and then I want to hear your ideas.
When Bob Durst killed Kathy, he killed Susan and Morris as well. Because once that happened, once he did that, There was no turning back. And Bob Durst, as the evidence will show, is a person who's going to protect and take care of Bob Durst.
So it's a pretty clear-cut picture. The DA gave a 3-day opening, basically laying out all the evidence to show that Bob Durst killed his wife, killed his neighbor in Galveston, Texas, and killed his friend in LA. I am afraid for this defense team. What can they possibly do?
Well, I think I don't want to give them any hints here, but they don't need them from me anyway. They're
Well,
very
happening right now,
experienced.
they're giving their
Yeah,
opening,
exactly.
so
But the bottom line for the defense is I think you have to take a completely different tact. I mean, prosecutors, 100 witnesses, months of evidence, 3 days of opening statements, make the case more simple, right? Make it simple and explain to them about what isn't here, the evidence that isn't here. They're saying he murdered this woman in New York. Well, the folks in New York aren't saying that.
Yeah.
And they're saying he murdered somebody in Galveston, Texas. Well, the jury down in Galveston, Texas didn't say that. So, try to make it much more simple and make it look like a reach and make it look like, hey, they're just trying to turn this case into what it is, which is like some sort of Hollywood production. And it's more about movies. They're showing you Ryan Gosling as evidence in this case, ladies and gentlemen. Really? Ryan Gosling as evidence? Evidence of what?
Evidence that
It wasn't even his best movie, ladies and gentlemen.
Bob Durst
I'd
got
like
an
to show you The
upgrade.
Notebook.
That is a good movie.
Right?
Yeah,
That's what I would do, but I wouldn't do it because I would never defend Robert Durst.
Okay, you know that at some point during this trial that the jury gets to watch the whole movie. All
I
good things.
know.
Isn't that great?
It is
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh.
It's wonderful.
It'd be so much fun.
But I
Ted
think-
Rollins and I would be with our Pinot Noir and Skinny Pop.
But since it's evidence in
Front
the
row.
case, that means we can show it on Court TV.
Jury box. Yes. Okay, let's have a movie now in Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments.
Okay.
Ryan Gosling.
Okay. Now, I'm telling you, even though I know you don't want to give the defense tips, I think you hit it on the head. And I think that is the defense is subliminally taking your advice because that is what I think they're going to do. That this is a Hollywood production. And I also let's go back for a second to what this same defense team did in Galveston, Texas to successfully defend Robert Durst. And that is they pinned it all on the New York investigation. They pinned the whole thing on Jeanine Pirro, this ambitious woman, New Yorker, and that she's after this poor guy. And that is what made him run, made him flee. And then, of course, he was engaged in self-defense / accident with his neighbor. And then, of course, the reasonable thing to do when you kill someone out of self-defense or accident is to cut up the body and then throw it away.
Yeah. So
'Cause that makes
They're going to
sense.
blame it on Judge Jeanine Pirro?
Well,
Did you know? Wait. Quick side note here.
Yes,
Some
give me
Court TV trivia.
Love it.
Right before, when I made the switch from correspondent to anchor, I did some test shows with several people.
Okay.
Including Judge Jeanine was in the discussion there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very nice, very nice. She was down covering
Okay.
Casey Anthony, got to know her down there as well. And she's very powerful, but she was
She's-
a very powerful prosecutor, and I'm shocked that she never brought the case.
Okay, now I have a side story to your side story.
Okay.
Do you remember, because you were there, the going away party for your ex-TV wife, Lisa Bloom?
Ex co-anchor, yes.
Yes. So Lisa Bloom's going away party, Judge Jeanine Pirro.
She was
came.
there.
She was there. And Lisa was like, you have to put a sari on her. So I was really, kind of starstruck, even as a prosecutor and as a
Sure.
TV person. I mean, more as a prosecutor and then she's like, all right, go ahead, girl, put it on. And I was like, I don't want to look at Judge Jeanine's underwear. I always have to put the sari on.
Wow.
And she's incredibly fit, but she was very sweet. She said, do your thing, put the sari on me. And she looked absolutely beautiful. So we both have Jeanine stories, but okay. So here is what I think.
Do we have photos of that to put up on courttv.com?
No,
We don't?
So in this case, I think, which is very analogous to what they did in Texas, I think they're going to say that it was the movie makers. So the same guys who made that movie with Ryan Gosling, All Good Things, they also made the Jinx docuseries from HBO. They got some evidence. and they turned it over to the Los Angeles Police Department, and the Los Angeles Police Department turned it over to the DA's office, and that's what initiated the prosecution of Susan Berman's death. So I think that's what they're going to go with.
Yeah. How do you think that's received?
That's what they're going to go with.
Yeah, that's what they're going to go
You
with.
like it.
Right. The defense always goes with something. They don't worry so much about the truth. It's more about what they're going with. But how do you think that flies with a Hollywood LA jury? Do you think
no.
they are skeptical of their own industry?
Yes. Also,
Yes.
do I think they're skeptical of their own industry? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think this is first of all, this is a highly educated jury. This is the airport courthouse. It is a different demographic. Every single juror has at least a bachelor's degree. We have a medical doctor on there. There's an MBA. There is a retired special agent with the FBI. There is a nurse. There is a pharmacist. I mean, these are really educated people.
Yeah.
Really successful people. So I just think I don't know if you can do that whole Dukes of Hazzard, J.R. Ewing, good old boy defense.
Yeah, because that was what worked in Texas. To me, it's like all these dots can be connected and were connected in the opening statement by the prosecutor. So I think at this point it's an uphill battle for the defense to try to pick it apart. But I think they've got to come in with these big issues, like the fact that this case is being made by producers.
Yeah, they have to do manufactured prosecution. It's
Yeah.
totally manufactured prosecution, but for Jarecki and Smerling, we wouldn't be here. And of course, the big question on everyone's mind will be, will Robert Durst testify?
Yeah, that's a big moment. He testified last time, and he doesn't mind speaking, especially when there's microphones and people listening. So I expect him to testify, but we shall see, and we'll continue to cover this, of course. In the meantime, up next, I want to talk about what I think is the biggest story in the true crime world that is happening right now, and it's actually happening in Idaho, Rexburg, Idaho. I can't believe this.
I love this story.
Yes, it involves a mother, 2 missing children, and a doomsday cult. That is next.
Follow Court TV live over the air, uninterrupted. If you're watching television with an antenna, just rescan your channels now to add Court TV. And go to CourtTV.com to see the exact channel position and more ways to watch Court TV in your area.
There is a case, a story that is brewing, and it takes place right now in Rexburg, Idaho, but it has parts taking place in Arizona, Hawaii, Utah. It is probably one of the most fascinating stories that I've covered since the relaunch of Court TV. And it involves a woman named Lori Vallow Daybell. And I say that because this is a woman who's had a few husbands.
Yeah.
And there's many layers to this, but the story begins with 2 children who are missing, okay? JJ and his sister Tylee. She's a teenager. He's younger than she is. And Lori Vallow is the mother. And all of a sudden, they just kind of stop communicating with their grandpa. Or with his grandpa, JJ, with his grandpa, because he FaceTimes with him all the time. Grandpa gets concerned, and then that's how the case starts, as a search for 2 missing children.
And now we've uncovered so much more. There are more dead people, unexplained causes of death for, I don't know where to begin. Do we begin with Chad Daybell? Do we begin with?
I think you got to start with Lori Daybell, okay? So Lori Daybell is married to Charles Vallow.
Okay, right, Vallow.
Okay,
that was first.
and everything seems normal according to Vallow. Then Vallow, in his divorce papers, says that she started to get obsessed with this whole doomsday cult thing, and things changed, and he tried to get out of the marriage, and things were breaking up. And in the papers, he alleges that she threatened his life if he got in the way of her and what she needed to do to prepare for this doomsday.
Of being in the cult.
of preparing for the Doomsday, preparing for the end of the world, which is coming up. I think it's this July.
But what is preparing meaning? Like
I
buying a
don't
lot
know.
of dry goods or
I don't know.
canned goods?
But what I do know
Paper towels?
is he's dead. Charles Vallow is dead. But we know who killed him.
Alex Cox.
Right.
Cox?
Yeah. Lori Vallow's brother.
Who's also dead now.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just can't believe this story. This is
I don't know
stranger than fiction. I can't even believe this is true. I cannot believe there aren't multi jurisdictional investigation.
There
into
are.
all of the, what,
There
but,
are.
Yeah,
There
but
absolutely
wait,
are.
Tammy. We have to talk about Tammy.
Okay, well, Lori Vallow is married to this guy, Charles Vallow. Her brother shoots and kills him, claims it's self-defense, so she's the witness for her brother. But then her and her brother and the kids, they move to Idaho, and she hooks up with a guy named Chad Daybell. But Chad Daybell, before he marries Lori Vallow, 2 weeks beforehand, he's married to another woman who dies. She dies 2 weeks later. Chad Daybell marries Lori Vallow.
And no one investigates Tammy's death.
No, but they are now.
Right, but why didn't they at the time? Because they said she died of natural causes, but she was a young person.
Well, these things happen.
No, these things don't happen to young people.
I know they don't, but is he going to order an autopsy?
Was Chad in the cult before?
He's written like dozens of books about all of this stuff. This guy has a following.
Did Lori move to Idaho because of the cult?
I think to be with Chad.
But she met Chad before?
Well, that's what we don't know exactly. We think that there may have been some communications and some coordination.
From like online like Doomsday.com
sort of stuff, but it's not clear. It's not clear. But what we do
Doomsday/Match.com.
They're both married. Both of their spouses die, and they are married soon thereafter.
Chad has life insurance from Tammy.
Yes, he does.
Okay, well, that's what I call restitution. That somebody needs to investigate. Is someone investigating Tammy's death now?
Yes, they exhumed her body from Utah. Now, the other part of all of this is it appears that they're all LDS.
Latter-day Saints.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. I'm
a
Hindu.
That's the connection. Because Rexburg, Idaho, there's a big Mormon temple.
Oh, yes. I did know that.
BYU, Idaho, it's a college town.
Yes.
That's where that is. Arizona has a very high population of LDS as well.
Okay.
So there's all these, those connections to all of this as well. So it creates a little gray area, but it appears from everything that Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow believe the world is ending in July of this year.
Okay. Now, your original point was we have
Two
missing children.
Two missing children.
And what is anyone doing to find them? Because clearly Lori and Chad are not.
No.
Charles is gone.
Well, I'll tell you who is. It's Grandpa. And Grandpa got this whole case started by getting a wellness check on the kids. There was a wellness check in Idaho. Lori Vallow said the kids were somewhere else. The investigators follow up. The kids aren't there. Then they go back, and then Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell are gone in Hawaii. And then all of a sudden, they are ordered to produce the children. She doesn't produce the children, so there's an arrest warrant. She's extradited back to Idaho, and they're in court. It was all on court TV, and then Grandpa spoke afterwards. Take a listen.
It was a different feeling. I didn't know whether to cry or to be happy, and I felt sorry for Lori. I felt sorry for her children. But I'm happy that justice is being performed. I feel like that we have a long ways to go. This is a marathon. The race is not 100 yards. This is a long-term project. We all can somewhat remember the Casey Anthony case. I parallel that to this, except I think it's a bigger case by far than that case.
So, Seema, I don't want to blow this case out of proportion, but
I don't think
The
I don't
grandfather-
think you can undersell this.
I don't think we can, and I don't think Grandpa can either. The analogy to Casey Anthony to me is right on here because it's children missing,
I think
not
this is
reported
worse.
missing, and a mother who is denying
This,
it all
okay, but
and doing nothing to help.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. Number one, this is much worse than Casey Anthony because there's just more children involved and more dead people. Now, number two, do you think there's something the judge should have done at that arraignment/bail hearing? Because you're saying originally she was ordered to produce the kids. She didn't produce the kids. She was extradited back to Idaho. Now she's in court and everyone is just like, oh yeah, these are the charges against you. Guilty or not. Do you understand the charges? Yeah, I do. She's in full makeup, like full television anchor
Unbelievable.
makeup, okay?
Unbelievable.
And nobody's asking her like, oh, BTW, where are your children? So isn't there some mechanism that, I don't know, they could just hold her in jail until she gives some information?
Yes, but at this point, she's charged with desertion of a minor, obstruction of law enforcement, contempt of court, and criminal
Who is looking for the
solicitation
kids?
of
Who's
a crime.
looking for the kids?
Investigators are looking
Okay,
everywhere.
so they are.
They are. They're looking everywhere. And one of the places they're looking is the place where Tylee was last photographed, which is Yellowstone, which is right near Rexburg, Idaho, is right at the entrance to Yellowstone.
Right. Okay. Correct. So now Alex Cox, who, again, allegedly killed her husband in self-defense. She was the witness to that alleged self-defense.
Right.
Now he's dead
Right.
of natural causes.
I
Another young
that one
person.
I'm not clear on how he
I
died.
think so. That's something. But the bottom line is this: is Alex Cox's death being investigated?
Yes.
Okay, so Alex Cox's death being investigated. Tammy's death is being investigated. People are looking for this children. I think someone needs to physically torture Lori Vallow. Do we do that in this country?
We
or
don't
no?
do that in this country.
Maybe
And
we
here's-
should bring it back.
But here's the other problem.
Bring it back.
How could you compel her to speak now? Now she's a
I'm
criminal.
physically torture her.
Okay. But you can't do that in this country. We know you can't.
I'm not from this country. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what most people want to do at this point because she's not
It's
speaking.
so horrible.
And she's smirking in court. She was
yes,
smirking as she
eye-rolling.
walked past Grandpa. She smirked.
She was eye rolling at the judge. Wait, and the little one, the JJ, he's autistic.
Yeah.
That's
another part of this.
That causes me physical pain.
But here's the legal problem that they have at this moment. How can you compel her to speak now that she's a criminal defendant? I don't think you can. How can you make her speak?
Okay, the only way is that the prosecution can now plea bargain with the defense because it's just like information. It's just any other form of information. Oh, you know where the gun is hidden. You know where the drugs are. Like it's just another piece of information.
Yeah, but a judge, I don't think at this point a judge can. Yeah, I don't think a judge can look at Lori Daybell, Vallow, Ryan. She's got so many last names.
You're right.
But I don't think you can compel her to speak. Now she's a criminal defendant facing incarceration for the charges that we spoke about, and anything she says can and will be used against her. So she has a right to remain silent at this point, but her silence is the absolute frustration that everyone is feeling and what this is ultimately all about.
You're right.
And all she has to do is speak to get out of all this, but I don't see that happening, at least not before August 1st of 2020, if the world is still here.
Oh, and then we'll check back in with her.
Then we'll check back in. Well, this is a case that obviously every hearing that happens, you'll see and hear about on Court TV. And this is just the beginning of a very complicated, convoluted, factual scenario, but investigations in multiple jurisdictions with, unfortunately, 2 missing children and 3 dead adults. When we come back, we've got a death penalty trial on Court TV. And it involves a really horrific image that I cannot get out of my mind, which is a single dad with a gun to his head during a robbery, pleading for his life and telling the person holding that gun, I have a daughter. And that person squeezes the trigger. And now prosecutors say they have him on trial. We'll talk about that next.
For more Court TV, watch it on cable, over the air, Roku, or go to CourtTV.com and stream live gavel-to-gavel coverage. Catch up on the big moments from our current cases and relive some of Court TV's most historic trials. Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
And on Court TV, we've got another brand new trial out of Polk County, Florida. It's a very tragic story involving a single father and goes on a dating app. Of all things, a dating app. Just to go on a date. You're a single dad. You need to go on dating apps to meet people maybe. I don't know how they do it these days, but he does. Innocently goes bowling, and he ends up apparently, according to prosecutors, being set up and then murdered. And at the moment that he is shot and killed, he's pleading for his life, saying, "I'm a father. I've got a little girl." Shooter doesn't care.
And this is not any little girl. I mean, she is one of the cutest kids I have ever seen in my life. She's just like a little bunny. She's just so absolutely precious. So, and we've been showing pictures of her and her dad and the family and all over Court TV. And when you look at her and you think what, she has to live with now, it's
and what she misses. Dad is gone. Dad's not coming back, and she's got to live with this. And now in this case, you've got 4 defendants in total for the murder. You've got Haley Bustos, the woman who went out on the date with him, and then 3 men, including Andre Warner, who was the alleged shooter, who's the one that's on trial here. Of the 4 cases, his is the only one that's a death penalty case.
Yes, but what I didn't know until yesterday is that all of them, including Haley, who was only 18 at the time, all of them have criminal records. And I believe all of them were on probation at the time for one thing or the other. I cannot even believe that Haley Bustos, and you see her, she's just this really fresh-faced, youthful, young woman, and that she, in fact, orchestrated this robbery turned murder. I don't know if she necessarily knew it was going to be a murder, but she knew it was a robbery. She facilitated the whole situation, and that they all have these criminal records. Andre Warner, I believe, has the worst record, including robberies and domestic assaults. He's the only one facing the death penalty. The other person who went into Adam Hillary's apartment with Andre Warner was Gary Gray, and his case is on for trial in October, but not facing the death penalty. Joshua Ellington was the getaway driver. We may expect him to testify at the trial, and we are definitely expecting Haley Bustos.
Yeah, she has to testify for prosecutors, because I think this is a case that without her is very, very difficult to prove. She's got the inside information. She's the one who can tie everything together for them. But I'll tell you what, it'd be difficult as a prosecutor to give her a super sweet deal. She's 18, so maybe she gets out at some point in her life rather than life without parole. But I don't know how sweet you want to make it for her. And right now, I have no information that a deal has been struck other than we expect her to testify.
There's a bit of a curveball, and that is that apparently all of the co-defendants at one point or the other has taken credit for the shooting, including Haley Bustos. So the defense attorneys are planning to call a bunch of inmates, which I love. I love seeing just a line of black and white horizontal striped outfits. Come into court. It's entertaining. It is entertaining. So you can have a bunch of inmates are going to say, so-and-so said this to me. And then all of these co-defendants who are going to testify, they're going to be questioned. Did you take credit for the shooting? And why would Haley Bustos take credit for the shooting?
Makes no sense.
Why would they?
Makes no sense. It's really a problem. Now, if I'm the prosecution, all 4 to me are culpable in all this, because it's all one common scheme. I think the big question here will be if the jury has some doubt about who actually pulled the trigger, does that help in the guilt phase, or does that only help if we get to a penalty phase?
Well, I think if there's 4 people who are involved in the crime, and then you have Haley says, oh, I pulled the trigger. Joshua said, I pulled the trigger. Gary, I pulled the trigger. And Andre, it's so convoluted. Did you ever watch Grey's Anatomy?
I saw a couple episodes.
Okay, so
Did not enjoy it.
All right. Oh my God, what's
Not as good as
wrong
ER.
with you?
ER was so much
Yeah,
better.
ER was good. Well, here's the thing. There was this famous storyline where all the residents took credit for cutting the LVAD wire. So the boss was like, who cut the LVAD wire? And, Meredith Grey was like, I did. Christina Yang said, I did.
I don't even know
Alex
what an
Krebs said, I did.
LVAD wire. What
It's
is it?
something to the heart.
Okay.
And everybody took credit for, cutting the LVAD wire so nobody would get in trouble. So this is like the LVAD wire.
Oh, I see. So that's
It's
a
like- do
bad
you
thing to
see-
cut that wire.
Yeah. Like it's a
Okay.
bad thing to shoot someone.
Right.
But everyone taking credit
I
for
wasn't
it.
following it. I thought they were taking credit for saving someone's life, but no, they actually
No.
they all
Opposite.
took the fall.
See, now you see my
I see.
my
That's a great analogy.
Thank you. Appreciate.
But
appreciate.
that show is still on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so good.
It
So
never
good.
ends. It's
But
like The Simpsons.
McDreamy died.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, he did
Like years ago.
in the series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now in real life he's fine. Patrick
Oh,
Dempsey, not good.
Thank
He's doing
goodness. Thank goodness.
good. Onter.
Now, in this case, Haley Bustos, is the key to the prosecution case. But if she's taking credit for it and she's getting some sort of a deal, her credibility can be undermined. And she's the one who's involved with the whole dating app. So, and that's something that she can't get around.
That's right. That is right. Factually, she cannot get around the dating app. I also think, though, that any deals are going to be open-ended. So when they testify, they will be asked, hey, are you getting a deal? And if, in fact, this is true, that there's no exact deal on the table, then she can say, well, maybe I will. It depends on my testimony. And that makes a snitch more credible, right?
Sort of, but not really.
You don't think so? Wait,
It's not real. No, I think it's the same. I mean, for me, if I was a juror, I'd look at it the same way. I wouldn't see a difference between open-ended is like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, backroom deal. You're not being 100% honest with me. Versus if the deal is on the record that I know exactly what you're getting. I almost find that better. As bad as it is, I almost find that better because if it's open-ended, it's like, well, does it depend if they get a conviction and maybe she'll get a deal? Maybe she'll spice up her testimony to get a sweeter deal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Versus what's.
Before we wrap, I want to ask you, why do you think the jurors were asked so many questions about the dating app? Do you think the dating app, like being on dating apps itself, is almost a character in this story?
Sort of, but not really. I think ultimately it comes down to a bunch of people who
too.
all have criminal records, none of whom you like, and they use the dating app.
Sure.
So
I'm surprised that the jurors were asked a lot of questions about dating apps, and I just don't think it really matters.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What did I just say?
Now we have to go.
We
now
gotta
we
go.
really have to go.
We've been going way too long.
Is your
here.
blood sugar low?
Oh, there's something. Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, folks,
Wrap.
thank you so much. We're on television also, in addition to the podcast, and it's called Court TV, okay? Court TV is the name of the network. We are everywhere. Get a digital antenna if you don't have one already.
Rescan.
And scan it and rescan it if you already have one. You can find us anywhere. You can go on courttv.com to find out in your city where we are located. So it's very easy. It's very easy to watch all these cases and these trials. So, but I gotta go, Seema. So,
Thanks for listening.
I agreed with Seema.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to courttv.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.